Good afternoon, everyone. I will call this regular meeting of Council of the Municipality of Jasper to order for August 18th, 2026. It is 1:31 p.m. Welcome to councillors assembled here in the quorum room. Welcome to administrative staff, to a delegation that is on our agenda for today. Welcome also to members of the public here in the quorum room, watching on our Zoom platform or who will be watching later on our YouTube channel. Councillors, you have today's proposed agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or other changes to be made to the agenda? Seeing nothing, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting as presented. Councillor Melnick, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We have before us for approval today 2 sets of minutes. We'll begin with the minutes of the regular meeting of August 4th, 2026. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Seeing no indication, I would look for a motion that council approve the minutes of the August 4th, 2026 regular council meeting as presented. Councillor Waxer, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We also have before us the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting of August 11th, 2026. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections required to be made to those minutes? Again, seeing no hands, I would look for a motion that council approve the minutes of the August 11, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting as presented. Deputy Mayor Roger, thank you for that motion. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 4, delegations. We have a delegation scheduled to speak to us today. That is a delegation from Aquatera. We have Mr. Fred Wiebe and Mr. Shane Cooten with us both. Welcome, gentlemen. I'll give you a moment to get the technical aspects set up, and I will turn to CAO Given for a bit of an introduction. CAO Given.
Thanks very much, Mayor Ireland. I can maybe also buy a little time while the delegation gets set up. As Council knows, Aquatera is the contracted operator of the municipality's wastewater treatment plant. We entered into a 10-year operating agreement with Aquatera in 2022, I believe. I'm going by memory. Yeah, okay, so we're about 5 years in now. As a part of the contract, Aquatera is obligated to provide a regular reporting to council in a public forum. And so this is that annual report from our contractor about how operations at the plant are going and reporting on some of the measures that are included in their contract for service with the municipality. So with that light introduction, gentlemen, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here to present to council again this year. I see a few familiar faces, and those that haven't met me, my name is Fred Wiebe, manager of managed operations for Aquatera. So I help assist operations in looking after your wastewater treatment facility and just making sure that we're meeting approval requirements, but also, like Bill said, the maintenance requirements as we look after your facility. And I'll hand it over to Shane here for an introduction.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks, Mayor Ireland and Council for having us here. My name is Shane Cooten. I've been with Aquatera 5 years, and I've been doing a lot of the capital planning and execution over the 5 years for your wastewater plant. Mechanical engineer background myself, and I'll go at near the end of this presentation, I'll go through a little bit of the 2025 and 2026, 27 coming up capital planning that we're doing for your teams.
Thank you. All right, so for our agenda today for our presentation, we're going to be reviewing some of the team highlights that we'd like to point out for this past year, which is from July 1st to June 30th is the operating year. The community support that we provided as Aquatera, giving back to the community. Some of the performance results and highlights, so KPIs, the performances to how we've measured against what we have in our contract, as well as our environmental performance. And then, as Shane mentioned here, a capital project summary. And Mayor, if you're fine with it, we'll take questions at the end. So we'll try to make our way through. So please jot down any notes if you do have questions for us throughout the presentation. So we're very proud to announce that, announce or share, I guess, that we partnered with the Municipality of Jasper staff members in 2 different presentations in this past year. So we actually had a presentation at Western Canada Water, which basically includes Manitoba right through to BC, water and wastewater specialist. So it provided an opportunity for our staff to work with Municipality of Jasper staff to present learnings, findings, some of the challenges with the Jasper wildfire. And then at the Water Earth Innovation that Aquatera hosts in Grand Prairie, but it's also virtual. So again, we see an audience throughout Alberta, mainly water and wastewater operators, but also suppliers and experts in the industry, with a bit of an altered presentation, but again, around the wildfires and learnings around that that occurred here in Jasper. So both presentations were very well received and very, very good feedback to the staff that provided that. We also have continued development of our operations. So through just the hands-on learning experience, I always point out, I've been in the water wastewater industry for over 25 years and I'm still learning every day. That's what I love about the career. So much to learn through, the challenges that you're presented with, operational challenges, the outcomes for environment, the ever-changing environmental compliance components that we have to meet, things like that, and then technology changes, right? So it does provide our operators and our staff here in Jasper. Also, as you see, one of our operators in the presentation, just going out and stretching, our skills and abilities to be able to present what we've learned, but also just our day-to-day operations and the challenges that we're met with. Also happy to report that we had our newest operator, who's been there 1.5 years now, obtain his level 1 wastewater certification, and he's actively pursuing his level 2 certification. For those that may not know, the highest you can get is to a level 4, which takes probably about 6 years to obtain through either CEUs, so it's continuing education units, or a combination of that and hands-on experience in the field. So it does take quite the effort to try to get fully certified. And then safety reporting. So we've seen an increase in our safety reporting. So we have proactive safety reporting because Aquatera does take safety really very seriously. So I'll present on that a little bit further into our slide deck here. But so we've seen improvements in that in this past year here as well. So just some community support. We at Aquatera pride ourselves in being involved in the community. A part of that is giving back. Financially, we supported the list of organizations and non-for-profit groups that you see on the slideshow here, including Fallen Mountain Soap, and I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this correct, but Asunuwachi Winawak Nation, as well as Community Outreach Services, Community Team Society, Pride Festival, as well as we provided 125 branded bags to the Jasper Minor Hockey U7 Bear Cubs. And then, like I said, our contract year actually goes from July 1st of last year. So there's some of the same societies and groups that you see in the 2025 grouping there, but we do try as much to spread out some of that donations and giving back to the community on these different organizations as they apply for that. So if at the top of your mind, you know of some organizations that could really benefit from this, that are, not-for-profit and meet some of those items that we try to go for, as whether it's, youth education and some of those items, we direct them to our website to fill out an application there, and definitely love to get back to our community in that way. Jumping to the next slide, here is a bit of an overview of the performance results, and my apologies if this is a little bit small. I'm going to dig into some of these numbers and stats and details a little bit further in the following slides, but I'll give a bit of an overview on the performance. So there's weightings and results as to how we performed versus each category that's listed here. So the first one being the Aquatera Jasper site work WCB reportable claims. So we had 0 claims in the previous contract year, so which gives us the full weighting there. Operational improvement completion. So these would be items that we actively seek to improve the operations, the efficiencies, just for always bettering the efficient ways that we approach different operations. So again, I'll dig into that a little bit further on in our presentation. Like I mentioned, we completed 91% of the preventative maintenance components that were scheduled in that contract year, which is a really good completion rate. Again, these items are scheduled in a computerized maintenance management system, and so it requires our operational staff to go into those scheduled items, make sure that they achieve that and close it out within the scheduled time frame. All regulatory reporting was submitted and maintained a strong relationship with our regulators. You know, in our industry, it's unique. A lot of small municipalities that we go and assist, there seems to be this fear of regulators, right? So it's a lot of culture out there, I guess, of, you know, we don't want to contact the regulators. You try to keep your distance, where our approach is building that relationship with them, building that trust, and making sure that, you know, we keep those open lines of communication, ensuring that we understand one another. What is it that you require in your approval, and to make sure that, you know, we can work together with the province and with the federal government to make sure that we meet those approval limits. Non-compliances, and so again, I'll detail these a little bit further on, but we had a few phosphorus exceedances due to a chemical pump malfunction, and WISER is the wastewater system effluent regulation sampling, so that's the federal one, had a late submission. And again, so I'll touch on those a little bit as to why we didn't get the full rating there. Capital budget, so upon the approval to proceed, the updated supplier pricing was obtained and project costs were managed within those quotations. And again, we'll touch on which capital improvements we worked on there in the past year. I guess I'm saying that on the next bullet here, but the two projects that were completed in 2025, and the third project was experiencing a bit of a delay due to external factors, so equipment supply, as I'm sure you folks are also experiencing. I know in talking to some of your staff in the utilities department, they've you know, we've seen industry-wide delays in project supply, just I think world demand, right? With everything that's going on in the world these days, so so there was some items related there on that one project that were outside of our control. And then this annual presentation that we provide to council on an annual basis for that rating there. So a total of 95% performance there. So just digging into some of these items, so the no lost time to injuries is something that we're really proud of as an organization. Proactive reporting that we implement as an organization includes trying to capture hazardous conditions. So we actually, the computerized maintenance system, or not maintenance, but system that we use allows for our operators to take photos, identify hazards that could essentially become an incident if not corrected. And so we call that proactive reporting. And so we have targets that we set as a company for each individual, but also each location as a whole. So we try to get that input from each operator. Also positive observations, right? It's very easy to pick on the negative things or the things that need work, but we try to also note the things that we're doing well that are also assisting us in our safety management. And so those items really help us to try to get ahead of something that could potentially become an incident, which I think is a huge factor as to, you know, what drives this no WCB reportable claims piece. Some of the operational improvements that you know, I've listed here, I think there was a few others that I could have put in here, but wanted to highlight some of the slightly bigger ones. The online effluent quality analyzer was installed. So this is an online analyzer that pulls wastewater right out of our final effluent stream and tests it for ammonia and phosphorus. So our operators, it's connected to our computer system. It's called SCADA. So it'll alarm if that's outside of our range, and very quickly allows us to react to a condition that either would be a non-compliance or, you know, something happening in an upstream component, treatment component, or is this just a false read? So it's a really good tool for us to be able to react and respond quickly. The centrifuge and sludge handling optimization. So our operators have, that's been in operation just over a year now. Have worked out some of the bugs in it, but there was a few. Basically, I call them a sacrificial piece of equipment. They're called rupture discs, which were failing on us, and it was coming from a high pressure situation. And our operators did a really good job of narrowing that down. When there's a negative trend occurring, we tried to dig in and troubleshoot why is this happening, and we found that there was some material in a tank that needed cleaning out. So zip ties and things like that were getting stuck in the centrifuge, causing an overpressure, which would basically rupture this disc that's meant to rupture instead of all your other components taking the brunt of that. So we got to the bottom of that, and now have a system in place to try to more regularly clean that tank to prevent that from happening. We also installed an air dryer on our air handling system. So this air compressor supplies pressurized air to some of our valves to operate them open and closed. Those valves are outside for a septage receiving station, and as with air compressors, you get moisture that gets caught up in it. So both putting in a dryer on the compressor, but also having self-draining valves to relieve the moisture in the valves themselves has greatly reduced our callouts, because in the wintertime our operators would get called out because the valve would malfunction, and then you'd find out that moisture was stuck in the air system. And so those two pieces have reduced our callouts. And then a target of preventative maintenance reviews and updates for critical aging equipment. So we are kind of at that almost 25-year mark of this infrastructure. So what we're doing is actually looking at our PMs. We have them in place per manufacturer recommendations, but I think when you get to that life expectancy where it expires, I think it's very critical, and Shane will touch on this a bit further as to what he's doing from a capital improvement standpoint. But looking at that from a more proactive approach, in that how do we make sure that the PMs moving forward, as the equipment really hits this curve of age and needing attention, that we also update the preventative maintenance components that come with that. Whether that's doing it a bit more frequently, is there other components that we need to look at that weren't in the manufacturer recommendations? So, and then asset maintenance. So again, I mentioned that 91% completion rate. What does that mean? Well, we have a total throughout the year of 887 different preventative maintenance scheduled items, and we completed 805 of them. And some of those that don't get completed, sometimes it's just, there's an influx of maintenance or emergent items that come up, and so it gets delayed. And so, if it's only a few days before that next scheduled one pops up, it might have shown up as incomplete, just because now you're due for doing that second one again anyways, right? So, which industry wise, this is a really good completion rate number. Just looking at environmental performance, so we had 4 total non-compliance between July and June of this year, 3 which were specific to the 2025, and 1 that happened in early 2026. So to summarize some of them here, the phosphorus and coliform exceedance was due to an alum pump failure. And so as soon as our operators got to the root of what was causing that, it was corrected. And again, we work with the regulators very quickly to bring that within compliance. And part of notifying them is including a 7-day letter. So we have 7 days to essentially look at the root cause, supply a letter to them within that 7 days to show them what happened, but also what we're doing for corrective actions moving forward. We had an effluent composite sampler failure. So what this thing does is that it can be programmed to basically, I think what our sampler does here is in a 24-hour period, it'll grab a certain amount of sample every hour. So it's an electronic unit. And if it missed 1 sample, you're in non-compliance. And so there was a mechanical failure on it. And so by the time we're able to react to it, we've potentially missed one of those composites already, and so essentially we have to take a grab sample at that point in lieu of. but it still has to be reported as a non-compliance because that's what the requirement is in the approval. And then there was a late submission of a wastewater system effluent reporting piece that was monitored. This was due to a myriad of items all kind of hitting at one time. But we provided an improvement in a scheduling piece that all the operators worked on just to make sure that, moving forward, that wouldn't be something that would be missed. So we did still submit that, but it was unfortunately just past the window that federal government requires us to report that. So in the capital project piece, I'll hand over to Shane here to review with you.
Thanks, Fred. So I want to go through the capital kind of as last year, this year going forward. So we had kind of a capital plan overhaul in September of last year, which you would have seen. Your plant, like Fred said, it's hitting that 25-year mark. The bones are good. Some of the equipment is starting to show its age. We've had major upgrades like the centrifuge upgrade a few years back and the UV that was just done. So some of those major, larger pieces are hitting their expected end of life. So last year, we did a thorough inventory of all the assets, took some of the conditions that we knew about, conditions we didn't, their expected life and replacement costs, and put that into your 10-year capital plan. So it gives you better visuals on what's coming up over the next decade of potential replacements, whether it be maybe we can do some some bigger refurbishments, save some money there, but give you a better idea of that because as we do hit that 25-year mark, prices, costs do seem to go not off a cliff, but it does go up quite a bit. So for last year, some of the smaller projects we had, there weren't too many big projects last year. We installed some roof railings. That was a proactive safety improvement, helps our operators and makes work easier to do safely rather than having third-party rentals, equipment, others. It makes just it easier for the operators to go and inspect, change filters, do whatever is needed for maintenance on the roof. We installed AC for the dewatering and admin buildings. The admin building is, it's nice to have our operators to have a cool spot. But when we go into the dewatering building, the cooler it is, under 30 degrees, your lifespan of your electrical instrument just lasts so much longer. So kind of the cost benefit analysis of putting in a small AC unit and the expected life of your electrical infrastructure probably should pay for itself. Especially now we're hitting that 20-year mark. Currently in progress, we are replacing the Headworks auger screen. So that takes out the large solids directly from your collection system. I will be up here. We've got the vendor engaged, the PO is sent. We're just in approval of the equipment. So approving the drawings, approving the specifications of doing all that. So I'm up here. I'll do the final measurements, make sure it fits, get the equipment on order, and then we'll install that. And then the lab upgrades. Again, we've got the vendors found, it's being approved. PO hasn't been issued yet. We're just getting the final costing and then again, some measurements to make sure everything fits when we go up and demo everything and start putting in the new counters, the new fume hood and then replacing some of that equipment. And then as mentioned, we did that overall asset audit. And we've been planning those more bigger proactive maintenances, like looking at, maybe concrete condition. And, what we've seen is good. That's where I said the bones are looking good at this place. But then planning out a bit more for those larger equipments, the DAF, it's a 10 by 20 foot piece of equipment there. So these ones start costing in the hundreds of thousands to replace. So we'll be planning more in-depth reviews of those, seeing what we can do to extend the life, and if a major refurb needs to be done, then building that back into the capital plan. So that's why I'm here this week. I'll be doing that with the operators, gathering info from them, and give you guys a good visibility on what's coming up for the capital spends there too.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Shane. With that, I think that concludes what we have for our presentation, but we'd be happy to answer anything we're able to. And if I don't have the answer, I'll make sure to jot it down and take it away with us and make sure that you get an answer.
Well, thank you both then for that report, and I will look to councillors for questions. Deputy Mayor Roger.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to our two guests. Last council meeting, we approved a $4 million capital budget for the wastewater treatment plant, I believe, of which we're only paying $336,000. The provincial federal government's paying the rest. What I'd like to know is how far that takes us. Is that going to cover just this next year or the next few years? And if once we spend that much, do you expect us to be good for a stretch after that?
Deputy Mayor Roger, I can't remember the exact number that was on there. If that was just the waste plant or maybe some of the other system as well too. 4 million is more than just 1 year. I don't know if you remember, Fred. Pardon? Sorry, Bill.
Mayor Ireland, for Councillor Roger, that you may be referencing the recent federal grant announcement that we received with respect to recommissioning the sewer lagoons. So that was a project-specific grant that was intended for just recommissioning the sort of the overflow lagoon that had been decommissioned some time ago. It was not for the general capital improvements that are required, I think, that the Aquatera team was describing here. It's specific to that one piece of the operation that had been decommissioned, and the province of Alberta wrote it in as a requirement for us to maintain our operating license, that we had to recommission that, to restart it, to rebuild it. And we've been successful in getting grant funding, but that grant funding is specific only to that project, not to the rest of the capital items that were referenced today.
You know, I guess the follow-up question then is that for the follow-up items, is it typical that we would get grants from federal or provincial, or are we going to be looking to pay for it ourselves?
A lot of these are not maintenance, they're proactive replacements that have been there. I haven't seen too many grant items for those kind of ongoing, keep the plant operational to current standards. I haven't seen a ton of grant availability for those items. It's when you do get those unusual events that I've seen funding for things like that. So.
And do you have any estimate? I know you haven't looked at it much yet, but generally speaking, how much do you think we're looking at here? Are we talking about hundreds of thousands or millions? Or?
There was the baseline spending, which that number evades me right now. But on top of that, due to the aging asset, I think it was somewhere in the range of about $400,000 a year on average for the next 10 years, depending on what needs to be done when, for that additional kind of aged 20-25 year facility. So that's kind of that was the big money set aside sort of last year, giving you guys a heads up on that's kind of what we're looking at there. So.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add a little bit there too, again, with Shane's assessment here this week, the goal for us would be to provide, the municipality the best plan moving forward, because I'm sure this council would prefer anything that, as much as possible, right, is forecasted and budgeted for, rather than reacting, when you approve a budget and things pop up. And again, you might have some of that just given the age of the infrastructure, but we want to do our best to try to plan this thing out so it's more forecasted and planned out for this council.
Thank you for that, Councillor Frechette.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, and through you to our guests. Thank you very much for the update on your operation. A number of months ago, we did a tour of our water sewer treatment plan, and we were showing now I don't know what the piece was called. It may well have been the inlet auger screening replacement. I don't know if that's it. It was definitely out of service completely. Do you have any update on the status of that repair? And I guess moreover, was it budgeted correctly? If it's indeed done, or if it indeed is going to be done, are the numbers fairly close to what we thought that would be?
Councillor Frechette, our partner Associated Engineering has been working on that and providing budgets for that, so I don't have the budget number. That was one of the items we identified last year that needed further investigation this year. We had actually planned to take it down in May to see the condition of both the equipment, anything metal in it, the rakes, the motors, but also the concrete as well too. Taking it down because of the failure, we had noticed the concrete's good. We were looking at doing some proactive maintenance and lining there. That piece of equipment is on order. Everything is being approved on it now, so we are waiting for the manufacturer to come. That one was one of the ones that suffered the manufacturer delays, though. So that, I don't know the exact date. It's October, so it is scheduled for an October recommissioning.
Okay, thank you.
If I might just pick up on a couple of questions that have just been asked. So Councillor Frechette, I think, was referring to that large arm. And I take it that was your response, was that broken arm and whatever it is, a primary clarifier, I think. Is that the subject of this last little bit of discussion?
Correct, Mayor Aaron. Yes, it was the primary clarifier. It's meant to take out solids from the waste stream before going down and being further treated. So yes, that was the rake arm that was damaged.
So there is a capital cost, of course, to replace that piece of equipment. In the meantime, the system functions somehow, but it means, I would assume at least, that it means other components are more stressed dealing with, particularly over the summer, increased volume without having that piece online. So apart from the capital costs, are we experiencing increased operational costs to be operating a full plant with only part of the components?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Mayor Ireland. There are additional stresses. So now our secondary clarifiers essentially have to pick up what the primary clarifier would have been doing in the past. So there's definitely that component that now those units are struggling with trying to take that out. So our operators, I guess, attention to the whole operation system has to be heightened. Direct costs, we are noticing, the mixers that are mixing in those secondary clarifiers, failing a little bit earlier than what they had in the past. And it's a downstream, like there's components there that circulate from the primary clarifier to move sludge to different areas and so forth. So definitely it does have an operational impact, downstream. But our operators are doing a good job of making sure that anytime we're seeing spikes in some of the outputs of the effluent, they're troubleshooting immediately to try to keep it within compliance. And they've been doing a fantastic job staying on top of that. So thankfully, we've been able to still operate within being within compliance without having to try to get additional temporary equipment on site to help with that treatment process. Exactly as to what those cost impacts would be is always hard to navigate because you're not sure would this have happened anyways or not. But certainly there's additional components that our operational staff have to take on for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And then there is an increased risk of failure of other components that are now being overworked as well. So the delay at the supplier's end could have real consequences for us as well.
Potentially, yeah. So again, we're trying to manage that with, the sludge volumes or sludge levels in the clarifiers that are taking this on, right? Trying to do additional gauging as to what impact the treatment system is experiencing downstream as an effect, but it is a possibility, yeah.
Thank you for that. Councillor Waxer.
Thank you, Mayor Orange, and through you to the Aquatera people. I'm interested in whether non-compliances are an inherent part of operating a wastewater treatment plant. It is a little bit scary thinking that we've exceeded our limits of phosphorus and coliforms, and I just wanted to be reassured that 100% is not probably likely in any scenario.
Yeah, so to answer that first portion, yes, with some of the approval requirements that are in approvers, and I'll use in approval, sorry, that's the guiding document that we have to align with and ensure that we're in compliance with. That sampler failure, as I mentioned, right? Like there's, we try to learn from every non-compliance, every equipment malfunction, and try to see what we can do to help prevent that from happening in the future. But there's some items, whether it's intent of what was written into the approval or how it's written, or some components that there are just going to be things that fail that you will then be non-compliant. So the auto sampler is a good example of, if it has to capture one sample every hour and it fails to grab that one sample and you can't react in time, that's just an expected item that if that equipment fails, it's almost non-preventable. We have another a treatment facility that it requires an online analyzer to read every 5 minutes. And if it doesn't capture it within the 5 minutes, it's a non-compliance, right? But as an operational staff, to put you at ease a little bit, I guess there are requirements that when you call this in as a non-compliance, you have to call in with what your plan is to mitigate this, but also your workaround plan. So in that meantime, what you're doing is you're trying to get the system back into compliance immediately. But it's not like you're ignoring it for the next week, like you're taking grab samples, right? So a composite being a more representative sample, as an example, over a 24-hour period, but your grab sample is still a moment in time as to what's being discharged. So there's lots of steps as operational staff that we take to immediately action it, but then take steps towards mitigating it, but then still doing what you can to satisfy the regulators to ensure that what's being discharged in this case is still being corrected very quickly.
Thank you. Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, and through you, thank you very much for the presentation. Very detailed, and I think Councillor Frechette and Mayor Ireland talked about one of the things that I had on my mind. As we're rebuilding here, and we're talking about capital for the future, we've been successful in adding a number of additional dwelling units into the community, and we'll be adding additional accommodation on Connaught into different developments, and as well as replacing a number of residences and apartment buildings. Does the capital program going into the future take into consideration the amount of additional volume we might have because of the additional dwelling units? And also with that, I'll ask it at the same time, as Parks Canada develops campgrounds, and we will be dealing with some of the effluent there, is the plant at a situation right now, 25 years old and looking into the future? Are we in good shape, or should we be looking at higher capital costs in the next 10 years?
Thanks, Councillor Melnick. Yes, I believe the plant will maintain what you have today and into the future for at least the 10 years that I have in the capital plan. Your team did get a densification study done of your whole system, which included portions of the plant, and it only identified one bottleneck in the plant, potential bottleneck, I should say, in the plant. So it was actually that DAF equipment that I mentioned. So 10 by 20 foot system meant to get some more solids out, some additional solids out of the system. So yes, the plant should be able to handle that into the future. Those costs are built into the capital plan. Timing does depend on further densification. As far as the projects that were completed, for instance, the centrifuge is sized for future expansion. We did not want to put in the same capacity, knowing some of this could come up. So yes, the plant should be okay for the next decade or so. And we will aim any replacements we have to do. We take that increased rate into account as well too.
Thank you both for, like I say, the presentation and the explanation as it relates to capital.
Thank you. And back to Deputy Mayor Roger.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland. Through you to our guests. Just as a follow-up from Councillor Melnick's question, are we looking at a plant that's big enough to take doubling the size of Jasper, or 50%, 20%? What would you estimate?
Thanks, Councillor Roger. I cannot honestly remember the number. It definitely would not be double the size, at least for the summer months. In the winter, we are fine. There's plenty of extra capacity there. We can take things down, do some proactive maintenance. So it's really nice in the winter, but no, the summer would not be able to double the size. I think it was the number of like 20-30% fits in my head.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a couple of other questions. I want to return to Deputy Mayor Rogers' initial question just about capital costing. And so at some point, you will share with our administrative team capital costs. So annually, we look at our utility rate bylaw. Our utility rates have a triple C model, one of those C's being capital. So if you can provide best estimates of capital costs, then when we can't get grants, at least we can build our rate structure to anticipate this. So I take it that's something that you do on an annual basis in any event.
Correct, Mayor Ireland. It's we typically do it in September per our contract, but we are flexible for that if we want it early or later in the season. So, yes.
Right. I just had a couple of questions about environmental performance on the graph that you had. So there were, over the year and a half period roughly that's encompassed, there were 4 non-compliances. You've listed 3. Does that mean that there was at least 1 of each of those and 2 of another, or was there a 4th sort of category that isn't identified?
Yes, sorry, I should have clarified that in the presentation there, Mayor. It was 2 phosphorus exceedances right one after another there as we were troubleshooting the alum pump issue there. So, yeah.
All right, and so for those exceedances, you operate here in Jasper, but you operate elsewhere in the province. Are the exceedance limits different here in a national park on the shores of a Canadian Heritage River than you would encounter elsewhere? And is there an additional cost that's experienced to meet those different standards if there is a higher standard?
Yeah, so I can answer that in that throughout the province, the different areas that we operate, there is definitely a difference. Alberta Environment, and in this case, federal government as well, they do look at different, I guess, different components, right? So number one, the watershed that you're discharging into. So you're looking at quantity and quality. For example, so we operate in Wetaskiwin, Alberta, right? We have a very small watershed that we discharge into, and the density of the population downstream, downstream of us is Camrose, and they draw water from essentially what we discharge. And so that factors in, right? So you're basically, what's the concentration of what you're putting into the watershed, and then what's the use of that downstream. And then it also becomes a bit of a timing thing, right? As the regulators improve and or require stricter requirements in your approvals, it might depend where in your approval you're at, right? So if you're, year 9 into your approval, you might still have older requirements versus your neighboring municipality might have been updated to the newer requirements, right? So, and then as to the portion of, is there additional costs? Yes, absolutely there are. Just as an example, there's some limits needing to be met by a certain year in one of the municipalities that we're looking at. And just the chemical alone, the impact we're estimating at around $800,000 annually, just by that stricter compliance component. So yes, there can definitely be, whether it's operational or sometimes even capital improvement requirements as a result.
Thank you for that. And thank you both for the fulsome report. Much appreciated. I don't see any other hands, so I think Council has exhausted their questions. So I thank you both, gentlemen, for your presentation, and look forward to seeing you both again, perhaps a year from now.
Thank you very much.
Oh, wait.
No, it's not. It's not a question. I was just going to say that I make the motion that Council receive the presentation for information.
Thank you for that motion. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. So we've received your report and thank you for it.
Thank you.
That would take us to agenda item 5, correspondence. We have no correspondence listed on the agenda, and I take it CAO, given nothing has come in that requires council's consideration. So that will take us to agenda item 6, new business. 6.1, director's report from our Director of Community Development, Director Reid.
Hello, Mayor Ireland Council. Thank you for your time today. And the item is, of course, the Community Development Director's Report for this quarter. You will see, of course, that we have lots of sort of facts here, and I will, as ever, be giving you a few editorialized comments about our impact and our anecdotes. So if you have any questions, of course, I'm always ready for you. But under major projects, the Wildflowers Childcare Space creation, that project is out to tender and will create approximately 22 new childcare spaces. It will require 3 new full-time educator positions, and it will also create additional community spaces. Many thanks, of course, to the province for the space creation grant, as well as our partners at Pursuit for bringing certainly large funding to the table that you will remember from just a few weeks ago. Tennis and pickleball courts, the engineering is complete and the project is also out to tender with hopeful construction anticipation for fall 2026, backup of spring 2027. It, as ever, does depend a bit on how the bids come in. Doesn't depend a bit on how the bids come in. My apologies. It depends a lot, almost everything, on how the bids come in. And then it does depend a bit on the contractor that we get selected as to their schedule as well. I can add a bit here that the project itself is certainly more than just replacing the surfaces of the former skate park into pickleball and the tennis courts refurbished into tennis/pickleball courts. We have admitted finally that the drainage in that area needs to be dealt with if we're going to spend any more money on that project. And when I say we've admitted it, we have the data. So we've, got some engineering work done, and we know that what the path we're on is the right path for longevity of the asset. And so it does take a little bit extra when you're going to do some more work like that. The dog park pilot. So we did complete the pilot. The parks, of course, are going to remain open until we determine what the next steps are. But we had almost 200 responses. You'll see later, I think it's 183 at the time of printing, or you won't see that later, but almost 200 responses through Engage Jasper. And we are reviewing the feedback, and hopefully that will give us some information that you will see either through the budgeting process or as its own report. Likely the budgeting process is where we would bring that to you. And the aquatics has a nice smile today. The grant-funded replacement lane ropes have arrived at the aquatic center, and the previous lane ropes were actually hand-me-downs themselves, and we've had those for 20 years. So it is a real sense of almost respect for the lane swimmers and the swimming lessons and the instructors that we were finally able to say, well, we can get this grant. We appreciate the support, and now the facility looks up to speed or up to snuff on even something as simple as the lane ropes. There's a bunch of other equipment as well, like flutterboards that we replaced as well. So a great grant. Staffing, turnover and vacancies continue to be our most significant challenge. We've had a few injuries. We've had a few staff take some sick time. But other employment opportunities, cost of living, housing insecurity, and personal impacts from the wildfire continue to be raised as the primary concerns. We do have some great news, and if I had more time, I could list you about a dozen or 14 staff changes that have been really positive across the department. We have people returning to the pool and the childcare center. We have people getting promoted to new positions here and there all over the department. And those signs of positivity and the staff really stepping up to take on these roles is wonderful and does help us to offset our hard work in that bullet above. I do want to take a moment to highlight This says activity center staff supported by the Jasper Fire Brigade responded quickly to a basement sprinkler failure. And this preventing service interruption and likely avoiding significant property damage is my way of fitting it onto one page for the report structure as needed. The story there is easily tens of thousands of dollars because people like Kelly Dawson and her fire crew that came to the site, Pete Charnosky, has had a spare sprinkler head and had the ability to install it that 3 or 4 in the morning. Angela Franklin came in and began squeegeeing. The fire crew came back to help squeegee. I get really excited when we have cross-department work like that, but the kind of ownership that reflects of the fire brigade, of Ange and her team, and ops came once they were aware. They came right away as well. And so the kind of ownership of our facilities that enables something like Wildwoods Base Camp, the new name for summer fun, they are based out of that room down there. And if that damage would have been allowed to progress for a couple of hours, we might not have had the basement available. We might have been in a place where we had to replace our racket court floors. As you may remember, that is how we replaced them some number of years ago because there was a water damage to them. So I cannot say enough about that as one example of the staff and the kind of commitment they have and the kind of living our 6 municipal values. It is just inspiring to go to work when you work with people like that and a whole team across the municipality. And so I really didn't want to go past that real quick. I wanted to spend a little time there. We are mourning the recent loss of one of our newest staff members, a young Jasper teen who was lost on vacation a little while ago. The memorial is today for those of you who are able to go, perhaps if council ends early enough. So I will talk less. Moving into service trends, the childcare wait list process changes have actually occurred in some respects, and more changes are being contemplated. We are getting advice from our parent board, and we are looking at what you would call industry standards as part of council's approved childcare strategy. The Wildwoods Base Camp, formerly Summer Fun, as I mentioned, full enrollment throughout the summer. And full enrollment means 58 families that are supported by that program. Recreation facilities continue to experience strong participation across all age groups. The 6 a.m. fitness center opening has proven itself, and we will keep it on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. In the fall, we will look at an opportunity to see what budget requests we might make to expand that if possible. I can just drop a couple of things in here, like over 4,600 membership scans at our facilities in July. I'll just let that sink in. 4,600. It's actually 4,872 membership scans in our facilities in July, and 1,700 drop-ins. So that's 1 month. It's obviously July is our big month, but that shows you what kind of use our facilities are getting, what kind of work the staff are producing. 680 lessons occurred at the pool, 67 outreach programs, cost programs, 1,500 attendees at those programs. There were almost 500 hours of rentals done. This is all just July. I just wanted you to have a snapshot of the kind of volume we're running. We are seeing that our volumes are returning to within 10% of 2023. 2023 was a pretty high year. And of course, COVID, 2023 was a high. We are at about 90% of our attendance numbers now. So that's great news. Outreach and settlement. Yes, I've covered that. Arena. So the ice has begun. The start, we've installed it early this year. It's not open yet. They were doing line work, I think, yesterday. So there's still about, I'm going to estimate 47,000 floods yet to do, because they do the flood so slowly and deliberately. I'm lying, of course. It's not 47,000, but it may be 47 and it may be 147. I'm not sure what the number is. But that arena, and they are we would say, quite short-staffed right now, and they are making it happen. It is impressive work across the department. Communications and engagement. Canada Day, we saw over 2,000 people, 25 volunteers, 30 staff, 19 parade floats, if you call them floats, entries. National Indigenous Peoples Day was great. I would say that was a 3.5, 4 hour event, and we saw hundreds of people. I don't have the numbers the way we do for Canada Day. Your Canada Day report is scheduled to happen next week, so you'll have far more details on our first run of that as the lead. And get ready for September 30th, of course, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Community conversations, you had your report. I will only highlight that Councillor Melnick was absolutely correct. The numbers were doubled through the Excel spreadsheet in error. And so, of course, we said it was 168. It was only 84. But it is still numbers that the formula was incorrect across the whole chart. So it does show you that we are at least on par with previous years and or ahead as far as attendance goes. Several new engaged Jasper topics were coordinated during this reporting period. So right now, open for responses with 143 as time of report is tax policy. Active and open for responses with 179 is transit. Active and open with 172 is paid parking. And just recently closed with 185 is the final number, I'm told, is the dog park. There are several coming up. I think since we're not exactly sure when they will hit, I won't list what might come, but you will see, of course, as they get unrolled, you'll see what they are. And, in major projects, we talked about wildflowers. I just want to mention that the wildflowers project and the clarity on registration is updated on our website. And so I will close with that reminding everyone that the website is, to our best abilities, up to date. The community calendar is a great place to find out about programs that we or our partners are doing in the community. And the major project page under council's section is where you will find information on these hot topics around our municipal operations or capital plan. And with that, I've reached the end of my page and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Director Reid. Are there questions? Deputy Mayor Roger.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Christopher Reid. My question is regarding the dog park pilot. Is this going to come to council before you move dog parks? Do we get to decide, or are you going to decide within administration?
Mayor Ireland through to Deputy Mayor Roger. I think we would say it's a combo. So straight up operational service requirements, we make those as administration. You've already empowered us and enabled us to make things like the change I spoke of at the fitness center. That was a request from the community. We found a way to make it work with existing scope, budget, and authority, and so we do that. In the times when it's going to take anything outside of existing scope, budget, and authority, you will then have to decide. So the dog park specifically, if it is in essence a zero cost change that doesn't affect any other user group, we would make that typically. If council would like to have control or input, you always have that ability to ask for things. And if it's going to require extra money that's not budgeted, you will see it as a specific request in the budget process. Either we will say we need more contractor money so that we can fix this thing, or we will say we need more materials so we can buy more fences, or we put it as a capital project if it reaches that threshold. So the answer to your question is yes. And have I made it clear, or have I muddied it for you?
The concern I have is strictly location. If they're going to be a choice of location, I would prefer it come to council for that decision. So I'm just wondering if is that going to happen?
I'm hearing that you would like to know, and we will inform you for sure as to what the results of the public engagement, and then we'll inform you what we would do with that as a plan. And then, of course, council would be able to say, well, we would like to have a fulsome discussion at council, and you can add it to the agenda. But there isn't a plan at this time to bring any report and decision making to council at this time. But if you would like that, you would have that as soon as we give you the info, before, after, in the middle of, all of that.
I would certainly like that the location come to council. I'm not sure if my wish is what rules here or not, but if you need a motion from us, I would support a motion like that.
If I may, Mayor Ireland, through to Deputy Mayor Roger, I would suggest that we will be giving you the updated information, the report from the public engagement, and what our next steps plans are. And from that, you can then decide if that's adequate or if you would like more information.
Okay, thank you.
I fear that I have been howling at the moon, but just a reminder, I much prefer that we refer to off-leash areas. I think I have lost that. It has been a bark in the dark, but just a reminder. Sorry, other questions for Director Reid? Councillor Waxer.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, through you to Director Reid. It's wonderful to hear that the Wildflowers Childcare Space Creation project is out for tender and will likely create 22 new childcare spaces. I think that's been a long time coming, and I'm really thrilled that that's thrilled for the community and for young families and for employers that is coming to fruition. I just wondered if you had any idea about when that project is likely to reach its conclusion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mayor Ireland, through to Councillor Waxer. We definitely have an idea, and the plan right now is that those rooms would be ready and serving the community September 2027. September is obviously a big moment or a big month for the childcare center because a bunch of kids go off to kindergarten. And so there is that moment, and it makes a lot of sense for us to be able to have those ready. There is also the Space Creation Grant has an 18-month timeline on it. So the timing is a bit forced, but it also works out really well for September 2027.
One additional question: does the Space Creation Grant include furnishings and things like that? So that, because I know that can be a potentially an expensive addition.
Mayor Ireland, again through to Councillor Waxer, that is a great question, and our project does include it. I cannot say for sure whether or not Space Creation includes it or not, but we have included it in the project. And so the spaces will open in September, fully furnished. And I should say, we said approximately 22. 22 is the minimum number we will come up with. That is the Space Creation Grants requirements. Through the process, there may be opportunities, creativity here and there to maybe make it 23 or 24. But 22 is the number. It is not a maybe 22. It is definitely 22.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Mayor Ireland, and thank you for this detailed report. I do want to first go and recognize the reaction to that emergency situation that the staff across a variety of departments performed, saving potentially thousands of dollars for the municipality and maintaining our facility and infrastructure. And thank you for bringing it up and talking about it in great detail. I think a lot of times our community don't understand what goes on at 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 in the morning. And just 48 hours later, everything is back to normal. So thank you for that. And I appreciate that detail. I do have a quick question about the childcare space creation. And you mentioned additional community space. And I'd like to have a bit of an understanding of what that might look like and what it could be used for. And the reason I ask that is that we're also currently talking about the church lands, and there'll be some decisions made potentially about that development. And, you know, it's great to have additional community space. It just, in relation to the overall community, it'd be nice to know just what it would be available and for who in our facilities.
Mayor Ireland, maybe I'll take that one from Councillor Melnick. So the childcare expansion, the wildflowers expansion gives the municipality an opportunity to optimize some of the use of the facility. The space that we're expanding into is currently occupied by gymnastics. They're a tenant in the building. They lease space from us. They've long desired some additional flexibility to be able to have increased viewing area. So that they can host more events, or even parents just watching their kids participating. And so some of the community space that we're envisioning would be a floor on top of the childcare expansion, so above a viewing platform or a viewing area out into the gymnastics area, as well as a meeting room or a flexible sort of multi-purpose room that could be used for anyone to plan a birthday party or other event. This is something that gymnastics has referenced as a part of their plans going forward. They'd like to host more events outside of just competition, which would allow them to be more sustainable and provide more activity in the facility. And then there's also space to leverage some of the existing infrastructure, like the bathrooms that are there on the second floor that have recently been renovated, and connect to that exterior entrance to allow direct private entrance to that second floor, as well as leverage the elevator that was recently added into the curling lounge to make sure that entire space is accessible. And we have a separate funding and project in our capital plan related to administrative space. And so there's an opportunity to create some offices, approximately 3 offices and workspaces in that area. As council knows, we're suffering some office space deficits. We've got multiple people sharing multiple offices, sometimes people sharing offices depending on the day of the week. And so we're able to leverage all of that existing infrastructure in this project to build out on that. So in terms of the community space, really focused on enhancing the gymnastics area and providing more flexibility in the facility while leveraging assets that we've already spent money on, like the brand new washrooms and the full accessibility on the second floor.
Thank you, CEO Given. I appreciate that. And again, sometimes the residents don't appreciate that when we have a project like this, just how far-reaching that the project can be for additional facilities for the overall community. Thank you.
If there are not further questions for Director Reid, before I ask for a motion to approve the report for information, I wanted to just echo Councillor Melnick's thanks for bringing to our attention the unified response to the sprinkler failure in the activity center. So glad to know that to have that on the public record, that staff responds in that way. And I wanted to use the opportunity to credit another staff member in your department. Immediately following or even during the fires of 2024, I received a really heartfelt email from residents of New Zealand who had visited Jasper and had planned to visit Jasper again, but their second visit was delayed by the wildfire. And they sent me a message of hope in the Maori language, which resonated with me and which I shared in one of my messages to residents. And that short Maori proverb was kia meaya, kia kaha, kia mananuani. Be strong, be steadfast, be willing. And one of your staff members, Joanne Sherlow, took it upon herself to have those words put on a poster in the stretching room in the fitness center. I received a visit from the New Zealand people who had conveyed that message and took them there to show them that. And quite literally, they were moved to tears to know that their message resonated so strongly in our community that it was up on the wall of the fitness center. It was a very moving moment, and your staff on their own initiative really made that possible. And I just wanted to share with you, but publicly, that our staff does some amazing things that don't necessarily become public, but they really cement our position as an iconic destination in the world, and not just for the scenery, but for the people. So I wanted to share that with you, Director Reid.
Well, Mayor Ireland, I sure appreciate that. And you are absolutely right that our staff, and I would say that across the municipality, but I will, put a shine to my team. Earlier today, my managers and I had a meeting scheduled. That meeting had to move at the last minute because there was an emergent issue that needed to be dealt with for a local family. And that's just today. That came up. We adjusted, adapted, whatever Marine saying you would like about improvise, adapt, and overcome to make the community service the priority. Yesterday at the pool, there was an incident regarding one of the staff. And that staff needed some time off for support, and the other staff rallied around and made it happen. The day before that, Beth and her team at 627 had to respond again to a staffing challenge. And I do not in any way, Mr. Mayor, want to minimize the comment you've made. I want to say that that attitude is one of the things that keeps me coming to work every day. They are incredibly thoughtful. They are incredibly community focused. And the kind of things that happen on the daily basis that, as you, Councillor Melnick, and yourself, Mr. Mayor, you're mentioning, these happen and the community doesn't know. The arena ice going in is a lot of work. There's not a community member there looking and watching them do it all day, every day, throwing down the ice. And it is their job, and they are proud to do that job, and they like to be part, I would say, love to be part of our community through the impacts they get to make. And I thank you very much for pointing it out. I thank you all for, your recognition of the team. And I will pile on to say, yeah, I'm incredibly proud to work with them. I'm humbled every day. And I've got a pretty big ego some days, but they are amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Reid. I would look for then a motion to receive, that Council receive Director Reid's report for information. Councillor Frechette, thank you. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. Before we go to agenda item 6.2, it occurs to me that I moved us too quickly from agenda item 4. So we had a delegation scheduled and we received the report from Aquatera, but I failed to call for delegations from the floor. And there is no one in the gallery to respond, but just for the record, it's an opportunity to remind viewers that there is an opportunity on every council agenda for members of the public to come and present to council, whether sitting in regular session or as committee of the whole, with respect to any matter on our agenda. And that is always open to members of the public, and I invite you to attend to the quorum room to do that on a future occasion, because today's opportunity is now closed. But I wanted to ensure that I followed our process. That then takes us to agenda item 6.2, records retention and disposition bylaw. This is a matter that has had first and second reading from council and has now received certification from Parks Canada. So it is here for third reading, and I would look for a councillor to make that motion for third reading. Councillor Frechette?
Yes, I make the recommendation that council read for the third time bylaw number 285, being a bylaw of specialized municipality of Jasper in the province of Alberta to regulate the retention and disposition of records.
Thank you for that motion. Councillor Frechette, does any councillor wish to speak to the motion? Seeing no hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those in favor? Thank you. There are none opposed. That is carried. Sorry, Councillor Frechette, I had not seen your hand if it did slip up there. That takes us to agenda item 6.3, wastewater treatment plant emergency storage lagoon recommissioning. This is a matter that was at Committee of the Whole last week, at which time committee made a recommendation to council in two parts, both of which are before council at this time. Subject to any additional questions for administration, I would look for a councillor to make the motion. Deputy Mayor Roger.
The recommendation is that council endorse the municipality of Jasper's wastewater treatment plant emergency storage lagoon recommissioning project, and that council authorize the municipality of Jasper to enter into a funding agreement with Housing, Infrastructure and Communities Canada under the Build Community Strong Fund for a federal contribution of up to $3,963,750, representing up to 50% of eligible project costs.
Thank you for the motion, Deputy Mayor Roger. Does any councillor wish to speak to the motion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 6.4, future ownership of CorCan housing units. Again, a matter that comes to council by way of recommendation from Committee of the Whole. And again, subject to any further questions for administration, I would look for a councillor to make a motion. Councillor Waxer.
I make the recommendation that council authorize the mayor to write to Parks Canada requesting that the agency consider transferring use or ownership of some or all of the CorCan housing units to the municipality of Jasper upon the conclusion of the interim housing program.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Waxer. Does any councillor wish to speak to this motion? I will call the question then. All those in favor? And there are none opposed. That is carried. That takes us to agenda item 7, notices of motion. There are none listed. I take it there is no councillor with the notice of motion for us today. So councillor reports. Councillor Frechette.
Yes, I attended the investment review committee meeting with the Community Futures as a member of the board of directors on Thursday, August 13th. That is why.
Thank you, Councillor Frechette. Other reports? If not, just by way of brief report, I think several councillors met with Alberta Municipalities representative last week for Towns West and had a good conversation about matters of particular interest to Jasper. There was this morning a legislative services, legislative, I guess it's just the legislative committee meeting, where the committee has confirmed agenda items for our upcoming intergovernmental meeting with Parks Canada, and also reviewed all of the resolutions that will be upcoming at the Alberta Municipalities Conference in September. And through Ms. Acorn, we will circulate a list of the resolutions with the committee's recommendations. And we worked out a 5-point scale with 3 being neutral, 2 being opposition, 1 being strong opposition, and similarly 4 being support and 5 being strong support based on relevance and impact to our community. And so that will be relayed to councillors, so you will have that information at your disposal prior to attending resolution sessions at convention in the fall. Are there any other reports for council? Seeing nothing, I will move to agenda item 9, upcoming events. There's a relatively short list of upcoming events. Are there any other events which should be brought to the attention of council? All right, if not, agenda item 10. Who would like to make such a motion at 2:52 p.m.? Councillor Frechette would like to make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? There are none opposed. That is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you to those who have watched throughout on our Zoom platform, and to those who will watch in future on our YouTube channel. And we are now adjourned, and will reconvene as Committee of the Whole Tuesday, August 25th at 9:30 a.m.